Well, welcome to this week's edition of Thursdays with Mike. It's actually Wednesday morning, early, post-election. Well, kind of post-election, I guess. It's kind of election week as opposed to election day. And you might be groaning, oh, he's talking about election. And okay, well, I'm picking up apples in my backyard, which is kind of a nice perspective thing. This is kind of what I do in the mornings in this season. We have, this is the apple tree, one of them. We've got, 4 of them still standing back here, but they're kind of worm-ridden. We've never had the means of taking care of them organically, and so they feed the squirrels. Nothing goes to waste. Everything goes back into the earth, ultimately, one way or another. Birds and squirrels. This is like Costco for them. But the remnants are on the ground. So anyway, I purposely haven't looked at my phone, well, until now. When I actually picked this up and touched the screen, there was a headline that I quickly looked away from. I had someone last night text me, hey, look at those red battleground states with 3 exclamation points, and there was a map, and I saw numbers that indicated one thing, possibly, but a map that looked very much the same as far as colors. And that was pretty much it. I was just dancing with my wife. We were practicing two-step and West Coast swing and some pattern dances last night with a few friends and essentially a private class. And it was nice just to have that undisturbed, actually. Okay, I think there's some more over here. I'm just reminded that when Martin Luther was asked, what do you do if you knew the world was ending tomorrow? And he said, I would plant a tree. I guess I would say I would clean up after my trees. I would pick up the apples as I normally do. And probably would go to a dance class with my wife and practice some of those West Coast moves. And that could be seen as a pious indifference. But it's really not. At least I don't think it is. I saw... Let's see, hang on. Well, this is interesting. I think we had a critter back here. Okay. I saw a couple of times yesterday. I usually will go on Facebook just to potentially see, well, number one, if anyone's trying to reach out to me there with a question or need. And then I can also typically see kind of what's going on in the lives of my kids. Well, that actually only works for 3 of them. But I saw posted and reposted a couple of times a statement that no matter how the election turns out, you'll still be facing the problems that you caused tomorrow, which is a nice balancing statement in some ways. In other ways, well, I'm just thinking that statement probably wouldn't be made by Hebrew slaves who heard about the ascension of a new pharaoh. They wouldn't be saying, well, who cares? We're still facing the problems that we caused. Okay, well, not exactly. Nor would I imagine slaves in this country would have felt the same. And yeah, you might have just turned off. I figure even just talking about this, I'm going to sit down in my rocking chair over here. Even just talking about this, it's like it satisfies no one and angers everyone. But it's Thursdays with Mike. I speak for myself, which is kind of the whole premise here. So what I'd give you, I think, well, actually, I think the main thing I gave you is this just now. Life goes on. I think there are challenges, depending on how things went this way or that, or how they go this way or that. I think there's probably a bigger challenge for Jesus people. If who you perceive to be your power base is in power, I think you have a bigger challenge. Because the co-opting influence of that in skewing societal, cultural, political narratives in kind of a assumed God direction, the arrogance and it's the challenge of being wealthy, I think. Charge those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their trust in their wealth, which is so uncertain, but to trust in God, who richly blesses us with all things, even fallen apples on the ground. That's a perspective giver. I think it's Paul, 1 Timothy 6 and 16, 17 probably. Anyway, and then challenging us to be rich in good deeds, to be generous and to be willing to share. That's our posture, no matter what the current political climate or results. That remains our posture of Jesus people, and it's a harder posture if you think you're the ones in power. And so you've got a stake to pursue. I think we have an interesting thing. I've taught government in for senior high, 11th and 12th graders for a number of years. Sorry, you might have been getting really close to my face. Is this? Yeah, it's too close. I did that for several years. One of the most enjoyable things that I did. And the challenging thing, I saw in a number of the textbooks, it was a Christian kind of like a homeschool column. The challenging thing is you have books that are Christian skewed, and looking at our political system and history from a kind of a Christian standpoint, which is one that claims this as its power structure or divine power structure, blessed and conceived in the mind of God and so forth. And I remember seeing parallels made with Israelites at Mount Sinai voting on whether or not they would adopt the Ten Commandments. And it was, wow, really? That was a vote? They took a poll and then they voted. Because that was kind of like, we talk about our history, join or die. That's kind of what that was. It was, and you oppose the current leader, Moses, and what happens? Well, the earth swallows you up. Not really a democracy. So that always made me smile, which I shared with the students. No, not exactly. And of course, the point is, even as you go into the New Testament, you have Romans 13, obey the powers that be, and so forth. And in all of those, we're not dealing with a form of government or, just a democratic republic, whatever you want to call this exactly, where at least we think we have more say. Maybe we do. But the point being that when you're dealing with a monarch, when you're dealing with top-heavy power coming down, okay, so you get along with them. In fact, what I would tell students, and what I just tell people now, is that from a Hebrew spirituality, Jewish spirituality standpoint, which is what we see reflected in the scriptures, New Testament and Old for that matter, we can call it Jesus spirituality when we come to the New Testament, but it is a different worldview, different viewpoint, which is birthed in a context not of democracy or a republic, but in the context of human domination and power systems that did not work in the favor of the people, use the people as a resource. And has that ever really changed? But the point being, every government, every administration is a beast. That's Daniel 7, these beasts rising out of the sea. All governments come from the abyss. This is really, that's just the biblical view. It's, they're beasts that rise from the sea. Same thing in Revelation, of course. And now it's like, okay, now you're really tuning out, which is okay. I'm still having a good time here. This is a beautiful morning, nice and crisp air. Still colors. Trees aren't barren yet. They're not just barren sticks pointing at the sky, yearning for spring and life. So there's some remnants of life here still. Anyway, every government is a beast arising from the sea. Whether a lion or a bear or a T-Rex, a monster that can't even be described, multiple heads and horns and names and numbers inscribed here and there. And what you do with beasts is you fear them, you feed them. That would be taxes. And so pay your taxes, honor to whom honor is due, and so forth. And there may be a level of sarcasm there with Paul. I mean, we just have to account for that. But you fear them, you feed them, and sometimes you fight them. And actually, I wouldn't say sometimes. We do fight them as Jesus people. It's the nature of the fight. It's how we fight, I think, is what comes into question. What I would do with my students is I would take them, first of all, to Uncle Walt, Walt Whitman. See if I can reproduce this. Walt Whitman said, let's see. Okay, hang on. Okay, it just flew out of my head. I would take them there, though. Okay, I'm going to have to revisit Walt Whitman. I'm going to have to... okay. I'm just going to sit here for a minute. Invite you to do it in the quiet of the moment here. Okay, I think I might just be going to the punchline. Resist much, obey little. Once unquestioning obedience, once fully enslaved. Once fully enslaved, no city, nation, or state ever again regains its freedom. Okay, that's right. Now I just remember the opening, which was to the states and any city of the states. Yeah. So a little short ditty in Leaves of Grass. Resist much, obey little. We don't typically hear that. I would share that with the students as kind of a contrast to just compliance with the powers that be. I don't think that's what Paul is saying in Romans 13 or anywhere else. Wisdom in regards to them. But yeah, resist much, obey little. It's the question, what does our resistance look like as Jesus people? As people who are with one foot in the city of God, the other foot in the city of man, who walk in this place of intersection between the two. And maybe that resistance goes back to those words in 1 Timothy. Charge those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant. But to be generous, willing to share, and so forth, to be rich in good deeds. That's a resistance that makes a true impact. So I would take the students there, and I'd take the students to a scene in Schindler's List where Oskar Schindler is sitting with Nazis along the railway there at a rail station stop as cars filled with humanity, stuffed inside them like cattle, are plaintively crying out for water. And Schindler, and I don't know if this happened or not, but it encapsulates our one form, or I think a predominant form of resistance, where with wisdom, where we're smart we're as wise as a snake and harmless as a dove. He waters down the cars, which the Nazis, of course, laugh at. They think it's just a cruel joke, and that's what they say. You're being cruel, Oskar. So I take them to that scene. And the warning being that when we're dealing with a beast, whether it's red or blue, I'm not red or blue, I'm just black and blue, people. I'm just black and blue. Life just beats the stuffing out of me constantly, so I don't have the luxury of worrying about red or blue. I'm just black and blue, which means my heart's open to every face of humanity that I encounter, and oh gosh, this is going to turn into a real long video. Yeah, we're already pushing 14, so I need to wrap this up for you, which I'll do with two things, because I would tell my students, yeah, if you want to fear the beast, feed the beast, and then very wisely fight the beast. Show them Oskar Schindler, and then I would warn them about trying to ride the beast. Didn't work out so well for the harlot dressed in scarlet in Revelation, which I believe represents the religious culture that would assume to ride on the back of a beast. Beast ultimately bucks you and eats you. So beware of riding the beast, is what I would tell them. Fear it, feed it, fight it wisely. As, again, Jesus people. And so I give you this Psalm 46, which is not the psalm of affluent people in ancient culture. It's the psalm of a very small and insignificant people who were enslaved in their past. They had visions of grandeur, which the narratives of David and Solomon in particular definitely share, but there were people away from home constantly trying to get back home. They have a story of exile and of being disempowered and displaced. Psalm 46, kingdoms are in uproar, nations fall, mountains are splitting and falling into the sea. Everything is in upheaval, and yet there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. If that's Jerusalem, it's metaphorical. There is no river that flows through Jerusalem, literally. But there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. And we come to this statement in verse 10. I saw it yesterday. A friend showed me her tattoo that said, "Be still." And I said, Kim, okay, be still doesn't just mean stop. It doesn't just mean calm down. That's still good counsel, especially for you. Good counsel. But that's actually Psalm 46:10, which is in the context of all this upheaval. It's not just say, hey, just calm down, it's okay. That's not what that's saying. The Hebrew, so these are our watchwords, and I'll conclude with this. And I hope I'm doing this right, because I don't want to go on my computer. I just don't want to see anything at this point until after I'm done with this. But it's, as memory serves me, harpu udu, which we translate be still and know. Harpu udu, be still and know. And harpu the Hebrew literally means sink. It's not just stop. It's allow yourself to stink. I almost said, yeah. You need to just give it up. You just need to let that happen too. But there is emotion in this, which is instead of frantically trying to prop yourself up, allow yourself to sink into this river whose streams make glad the city of God in the midst of all the upheaval. We either sink into the chaos and become people who are distracted and distressed and basically of no help to anyone, let alone to ourselves, or we can sink into the river whose streams make glad the city of God. And recognizing that this is the God, the power that is far above politics, far above all these weapons of war that cause these exiled people to be exiled. So it's a perspective thing, Psalm 46:10. I suspect today that, yes, we probably do fare, we all do, we face a fare in life that we're responsible for in one degree or another. We have the same problems that we had yesterday and problems that we caused perhaps, but we're also caught in the grip of a system and a life and a world in which we are constantly affected by its ripples. And so what do we sink into is the question, I think. So those are my ramble thoughts. And the sun's coming up and it's getting in my eyes, which is good. Sun still comes up. It's amazing. So what kind of people will we be? Harpu udu, be still and know. Be still and know. Harpu, sink. Like I'm sinking into this chair. Although I need to go to work. So we'll see you next week. All right. Bless you people. And go pick up some apples. Yeah.